Read Your Contract by Dragonrok007 at Thief of Hearts on Twitter. Diane was having trouble with her current internet provider. Although she had been promised and was paying for unlimited service, she was being throttled at the end of the month for excessive use, creating buffering and low-speed lag. After consulting with friends and colleagues, she came to the conclusion it was much more of a common issue than once surmised. A friend of hers that works at a cell phone company divulged the dark secret of how phone companies are able to provide discounted phones for their customers. They told her that the phone companies purchase in bulk at $10 a unit and then inflate the prices and tell the customers they're giving them a 60% discount when actually they're paying 10 times the amount of the purchased price. She also told her that when a phone is activated, the IP service installs a code in the phone to allow the provider's CSRs to determine whether or not they are a full paying customer. If the customer does not have a full service with the company, a color-coded initial NC will appear on the screen, alerting the CSRs that they are being hailed by an NC, or as they call it, a non-customer. This generates a list of non-working solutions in legal jargon that neither works nor is comprehensible to the customer, purposely designed to create a 100% failure rate and dead end, causing the customer to spin their wheels for hours until they simply give up. If a customer attempts to terminate the service with the company, they are required to obtain a release PIN number, which without full service has been trained by the CSRs to deny, rendering your phone to be a brick or a doorstop at best. Diane was frustrated with the service, but now found she was being held hostage by her IP carrier. Completely fed up, she decided to browse the internet for a comparable service. She came across the deal of a lifetime. In bold red letters it said, "Welcome to Celltech. Call, text, and data. Unlimited service, $5 per month. With a free cell phone with the most advanced technology on Earth, a $3,000 value. Please submit your $5 payment and click on our agreement for terms of service. Please read our terms of service in its entirety, as this is a legally binding contract between you and Celltech Communications, a subsidiary of SC Incorporated. Disclaimer: any similarities of actual entities currently active are simply by co-occurrence and not intended to be an infringement on said organization or operations therein." Diane assumed this was too good to be true, but it was only $5, so she took the gamble. She clicked on the link, completely disregarding the fact that the icon for the entry was a skull. The very first page asked for credit card information, legal name in full, card number, expiration date, CVS number on the back of the card. Diane found this to be a common procedure, submitted her card information, and continued. The terms page had a statement, terms of service, with dripping blood on either end of the statement. In a hurry, Diane again discarded the veneer, clearly being a semblance of something much deeper. As she began to read the terms, she noticed that every letter was written in red ink. When she began, she read every word, but soon noticed that the pages ran on and on. With such legal mumbo-jumbo, she began to get lost in the minutiae of the words. She decided to scroll ahead of the contract. After all, it was only $5, so if she ran into any issues, she would simply terminate her contract. Not a bad deal for a free phone. Or so she thought. It certainly was a good thing that she scrolled ahead, as it ran section after section and took nearly 10 minutes of scrolling to reach the last page of the contract. She felt confident that no one would read these terms of service in its entirety. When she finally reached the last section of the last page, there was a square template with an outline for a thumbprint and instructions for her to place the thumb on the plate for picture identification and registration for her new phone and service. It stated, this would be served as her signature for the contract. Early that next morning, there was a knock at her door. It was a Celltech delivery serviceman with her new phone. It was delivered by a technician that briefed her on her phone's capabilities and service options. He told her, we have exclusive rights to technologies not available for 10 years. We have our own infinite cloud service, and now that your phone has been charged by the home office, it will never need to be charged again. We have the technology for our phones to charge themselves off of their own existing power cells. When the phone's power source depletes to 80%, it triggers an auxiliary power to trickle back to 100%. So the phone is never less than 80% fully charged. Our loading and processing is instantaneous with a 0.00% lag. We don't use cell towers, and you will never lose a signal. Your phone calls will have an option for a holographic speaker projection, meaning your contacts will be profiled in holographic imprints to retrieve attached to the number listed in your phone. It will be as though they are standing in the room with you. The vocal projection will mimic mouth movement for each word uttered during conversations. Recorded voices are used to replicate conversations for further engagements. Through cloned imaging and holographic projection, it will be impossible to discern the actual human being from the holographic image cast by the phone's miniature projector. Diane was completely enamored by the phone's capabilities and bullet-fast processing, with instantaneous loading and video access therein. She immediately called her family and friends to take advantage of this unbelievable opportunity and gold mine that she had discovered. Diane surveyed her phone. It was beautiful, with a black lacquer finish and a red LED trim light that bordered the structure. Its functionality was simplistic, and with its floating icons for cut and paste, it made it simple to organize her social media, email, banking, organizations, contacts, and all other apps at the tip of a finger or thumb. The technology was far beyond anything she had ever seen or even heard of. Now it had been 6 days since she received her new phone. Diane was sitting on her couch watching a movie with her phone on the coffee table. All of a sudden, her phone began to flash with a bright red light, and the red border trim ran around the phone like a chaser. She retrieved the phone from the table and noticed it scrolling a message in fluorescent blue continuously across her screen and stated, "Your 6-day formation period has activated. Please choose one of the scheduled times listed to meet with your technician to schedule full calibration of your phone. Once you have submitted and verified your appointment, you will be contacted by a representative prior to arrival. Failure to submit within 24 hours of this message being delivered will be considered a breach of contract, and your phone service will be terminated immediately. Thank you. Have a nice day." Since it was Friday evening, Diane opted for the 7 a.m. appointment, clicked on, and submitted. 6 a.m. the next morning, a long white paneled van pulled up in her driveway. Basil is the director and field operations supervisor for SC Incorporated, represented by Celltech Comms, answering only to the boss, or the entity known as L. Basil is driving the van, and Kevin is his intern. Basil explains to Kevin, "We are on site for you to experience your first collection with the company. So here's what we're doing here. The customers have been instructed to read their contracts before they sign it. Every page, every word every letter, so they know what they're agreeing to and the ramifications and penalties of non-compliance. Through manipulation and deceit, our contracts are signed illegally. We make them so long and drawn out, even those who intend to read it in its entirety simply give up and scroll ahead. Even then, there are so many sections and subsections that they simply get agitated and frustrated and continue to scroll page after page after page until they reach the final page of the contract. It states, "Now that I have read this document in its entirety, I am bound to this contract in every facet. I consent to this by placing my thumbprint on the plate at the red X, for use as my signature. Once the customer does so, their thumbprint is photographed and immediately transferred into our database of unlimited capacity. Our services do a complete background check on every family member they have ever been associated with. But there is one caveat. Although every page and every word and every letter that's written in the contract up to section number 665 is written in red letters, the next section has no number to it. It simply says, 'This is a contract clause, CLAWS. The boss has a sense of humor. I have read every page and every section of this contract up to this point. I am invoking my option to take the clause in the contract, therefore removing me from all liabilities, stipulations, and/or penalties associated with Celtec Communications or its parent company SC Incorporated, and all entities related. By signing the contract at this point on this page in this section, I remove myself from all liabilities to any further pages beyond this section, with a red X for a signature. Because our services are so cheap and our product is so valuable with futuristic technologies available today, we receive millions of subscriptions per week. That's nearly 40 million per month. So Kevin, out of all of these millions of subscriptions, how many do you think have actually read the contract in its entirety? That's right, not one. Every single human being that signed up for our little organization is in breach of contract and subject to collection. Today is graduation day, Kevin. Your chance to move up the food chain. We'll call it your initiation day. So we'll see if you have what it takes to move up to the big leagues and be anointed into the realm of immortality. Our chart says we have a Diane Pierce. We have a 7 a.m. appointment, but I wanted to start early to give you your briefings. Mustn't keep the customer waiting. Basil calls Diane to verify her 7 a.m. appointment for calibration. She answers. He introduces himself as Devon and proceeds to the front door. While on the phone with her, he raps a friendly shave and a haircut knock against the aluminum strip on her screen door. She answers the door and invites them to come in. Diane leads the way down a short hallway into a living room. Basil voices, "Is there somewhere we can sit face to face? I'd like to interact with you directly and supply you with some more information about our service." Diane leads Basil and Kevin through the kitchen and into the dining room. Basil seats himself at one end of the table, while Diane sits at the opposite end. Kevin is seated on a long wooden bench in between the two. Basil, posing as Devon, the cell phone technician, asks Diane to see her phone so he can calibrate it to the newest frequency and add the most current updates available. Being at the opposite end of the table and nearly 7 feet apart from each other, Diane offers her phone to Kevin, sitting to the right. Kevin, in turn, passes the phone to Basil. He sets Diane's phone on the table, screen facing up. He pulls the strap of his messenger bag over his head and shoulders and sets it on the floor and opens it. He retrieves a composition folder from the bag and sets it on the table. He retrieves his phone from his breast pocket and sets it on the table next to Diane's. He turns his phone on and activates it. He puts his thumb on Diane's phone screen, and his phone goes into transfer data mode, draining every ounce of information from her phone and prompting the phone to activate factory reset, transferring all of her information into the database of his phone. Thumbing through his composition folder, he looks at Diane and says, "It seems we have a problem. Your phone is not allowing me to calibrate it. It says you are in breach of contract. Did you sign your contract when you signed up for your service?" Asking these pandering questions while already knowing the answers. Diane says, "Yes, I did." "Yes," emphatically. Becoming agitated with Basil's insolence, Basil returns. "Okay, here's what I need to know, and you really should answer me honestly. This will affect your contract. What section number in the contract did you sign?" Diane says, "I signed the last page with the red X." Kevin squirms in his seat uncontrollably, as the tone of the conversation has changed drastically. He's watching the exchange between Basil and Diane like a tennis match. Basil explains to Diane, "Unfortunately, by signing the final section, this shows that you did not read the contract in its entirety, rendering you in breach. Furthermore, you are subject to an immediate termination and severe penalties associated." Angrily, Diane retorts, "You bastard! You have no right to speak to me like that, in that tone, in my house." Basil continues, "I understand your frustration, but my tone is the least of your worries. We haven't even gotten to the best part." Sinister laugh. "You see, we gave you a way out. A clause in the contract, if you will." Whimsically. I love that joke. "So, if you had read and signed the section void of numbers between section 665 and 667, you would have been free and clear, and this meeting would not even have been necessary. However, unfortunately, you did not. So allow me to explain what you've gotten yourself into, Diane. You see, everything is numerical. The final section is number 969. There is a significance to that number, in direct correlation, whether you are familiar with the story or not. Methuselah was the son of Enoch and the grandfather of Moses, reported to have lived 969 years. There is only one number that is stable, 6, by proxy of numerical inversion of the outside numbers. We can see that the 9 now becomes a 6 on either end. So you see, Diane, by signing your name to this page, you have literally sold your soul to the devil. And I am here to collect. Basil stands and transforms into a black shapeless shadow. Reaching through the dark haze, he stretches his palm through the vapor, casting a shimmer over Diane, rendering her paralyzed and helpless. With infinite reach, he stretches his knife-shaped hand through the shimmer. His nails pierce her skin through her chest. She screams in agony, yet the cries of pain are muffled by the mercury-like glow he has cast around her. He reaches inside her chest and takes the soul by the throat and rips it from her body. Lifeless, she drops to the floor in a heap. Still with the soul in his grasp, Basil regains form. The soul squirms and tries to break free, like a kitten trying to avoid being put in a burlap sack. He feels his confinement is imminent. Basil presses the soul against his chest and absorbs it inside this vessel. He looks down at his hands as they glow and shimmer with energy from the absorption. He flexes the energy source as he feels the soul fighting against him until it is subdued by a host of captured spirits within, having already been consumed by the collector. Basil turns and looks at Kevin, pinned to the wall with utter shock and fear, not believing what horrors he has just witnessed only several feet away. As it transpired, Basil speaks. So, Kevin, now that you know what we do here, are you in or out? You will be granted immortality and live forever, and have anything your heart desires. Horrified, Kevin stammers, not knowing how to answer. Basil, recognizing his hesitation, continues. It's okay, Kevin. I understand if you have reservations. I'm sure this is all new to you, and beyond your wildest imagination. Only things you've read about in books or seen in a movie. Don't worry about it. You have free will. If this is not for you, you're free to go. Still stammering and trying to catch his breath, Kevin replies with extreme relief. Really? Walking towards the door, Basil stops and turns around. Stepping back towards Kevin, in a low demonic voice, he laughs out loud and says, "No, not really," as he plunges his hand deep into Kevin's chest and extracts his soul also. Pressing it against his body, he repeats the absorption process, holding his energy field until it is restrained by the inner spirits of his vessel. Kevin's corpse falls against the wall and slides to the floor. Once the lifeless bodies are securely loaded into the van, he contacts dispatch. "Hello, Magnus, are you there?" he voices. "I'm right here, Basil," Magnus replies. Continuing. "Do you need to come in and purge in the Chamber of Souls?" Basil returns. "No, I'm fine. My vessel is barely at 50% capacity, and we still have more work to do today. I sent you the information of Diane's family and friends that she so graciously supplied us by recruiting herself. Still, I need you to send me another intern. I'm headed to Diane's brother's house as we speak. You have the address. Pass it along to the new guy. Oh, by the way, Magnus, please send me someone with a little backbone this time, would you? Kevin saw too much and decided to defect. As you well know, the boss doesn't like us to leave loose ends. With today's inventory, we should have more than enough flesh for the funeral pyre. I'll see you at the barbecue.